At the time of the murders, nothing went through my mind, but later, when it was all over, after I had stood in front of over my mother's body and watched the blood pour out, after I had giggled and stood there and just laughed, I found myself in a jail cell. I was all alone. I had no friends. I had no family. I had nothing. I'd given Satan everything, and I had nothing.
Hi family, welcome back to my channel. My name is Candice and it's always a pleasure to have you with me. So there is this notion amongst the Christian community that when people do certain things or certain sins that they are demon possessed. And I'm not negating that they are the presence of demons and spirits that influence our lives because we live in a spiritual world. But I once heard a minister say, sometimes we blame Satan too much, and truthfully so, because we were born in sin and shaped in iniquity, the presence of sin, the actions of sin is almost innate in our lives. It's not that we were possessed, but it's just that sin displays itself. Think about a child, a toddler who will lie to prevent him or herself from being punished. Who would have thought this child to lie? No one. But the presence of sin in their life that they are not even aware exists would cause them to say, oh no, I didn't do this, or it was her or it was him, to protect themselves from punishment. It is this flaw and this frailty in our humanity that causes the enemy to work in conjunction with it to give birth to things that we don't desire. So though we were born in sin and shaped in iniquity, I don't believe that we are born possessed. Although there are instances where babies can become possessed. I remember a story of a gentleman sharing his testimony that on the day of his birth, his mother took him to a witch doctor, to an altar. Some ceremony was performed. And from that day, the enemy was given legal right to use him as a vessel for his work. So apart from Bible verses that has basically explained to us we live by how we think, I want you to think about it for a while. Have you ever realized that the very thoughts that you have is what governs your life? The very thing that you think. For example, I have struggled with fear a lot. And so fear has governed a lot of my decision-making process. And this fear was actually after the death of my parents. I don't know, life just kind of, the fear of losing things have become such a big wall that I am currently presenting before the Lord, but it has governed a lot of decision-making processes and so forth in my life. So the very thoughts that we have governs our life. And this can be in any facet of life. For example, there was a time that I struggled with the desire to masturbate because I've struggled with masturbating a lot in the past. And so I remember this time that this thought came to mind, and I was waltzing between, do I want to do this, not do this? Do this, not do this? And eventually I gave in. And I felt so much guilt and shame. At that point, I thought, yes, I'm definitely possessed. There's a spirit of masturbation on my life and I need deliverance. So I sat on the ground and I prayed. I said, okay, God, I know that I'm possessed. I need your help. Please tell me which prophet and pastor to go to, and I'm going to come in agreement with this deliverance service. And while I waited there, actually the Lord took me to a scripture verse instead of directing me to a pastor or a prophet. And so he took me to Romans chapter 8, verses 5 to 8. So the scripture gave me the answer that I needed. I literally was setting my mind on the things of the flesh. No, I want you to stop and think for a while. For times that you may have struggled, what caused you to make the decision to go in the wrong direction? Think about it. It is because even if it took 30 seconds, you eventually set your mind on going in the direction that was opposing to God. You know, sometimes you would hear people say, oh my gosh, it happened so fast. I did not expect to do this. Like, how did this even happen? Because within that 30 seconds, we could have made another decision to go in alignment with the word. So sometimes we want to say, it's the devil made me do it. No. Sometimes we make a choice to go in a certain direction. Again, I'm not negating that the enemy is at work. I'm not negating we don't fight against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. But sometimes we make decisions, as the Bible says, we feed the desires of the flesh. So I want to encourage you today to resist the enemy and he will flee from you. And just as you may apply strategies and tactics when it comes to decision-making processes in your life for a job, your house, your car, and so forth, apply this same type of strategy fortified with prayer and reading of the word when it comes to making decisions for your spiritual life and protecting your spiritual space. Because not everything requires spiritual warfare. Some things require a choice where I will or will not do this thing. I will obey or not obey. I will give into the word or not, or I'll give into my flesh. It all boils down at times to a choice. So again, it may not be the enemy that's causing the calamity in your life. It just may be your decision-making process. So that's something that you should take before the Lord, pray about it, and allow him to do what he has to do in your life and transform you to the point where sin becomes very distasteful in your mind, in your mouth, in your thoughts, and you're able to live a life that's pleasing to Christ. I pray you will bless. Until next time, take care.